everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. We're your boys. We always got something to say about the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Blayalong. And today, everybody, we have a very special guest returning for the second time on to Blue Jays Today. If you want to know about hitting, this is the freaking guy. I am still a year later in awe about just the detail that he went into on this podcast with us, breaking down everyone in spring training. I am so excited to welcome back for a second time, Mr. Joe Siddall.
Let's go.
Wow, pressure's on, eh, fellas? Holy.
How's it all going, man? Off camera, or I guess off camera, you were telling us that you just came back from New York. How was all that?
We had a little getaway. I enjoy my off seasons. My wife and I have lots of spare time. The kids are all gone and flown the coop, of course. Our son did just get married in first week in November. So he and Emily took off to Australia for a couple of weeks. But we had the wedding and all the buildup. That was just in the start of my off season. My off season started a little bit earlier this year, guys. I didn't work the playoffs, of course. And, I used to work it even when the Blue Jays were in the playoffs. But as we know, the season ended and everybody pretty much went home. And that's when I went home, too. So I had the whole month of October at home this year. Get ready for the wedding and all. It was great. All went well. And then, we went to a little getaway, just my wife and I in New York City for 36 hours. Got to do that around the Christmas. We have always been there in the summer during baseball. So anytime we've gone there, it has not been the lights. And also we thought we'd do that. We did that. And it's her birthday today. So we thought a little getaway for her. And it was great.
Can we get some happy birthdays in the comments, please?
Yes. So it was nice little getaway, but the off season we enjoy greatness. It's wonderful that, we don't do a whole lot, do the odd pod like this with you guys right now, but not a whole lot in the winter until I get ready to head to Florida March 1st. So still lots of time before that though.
Well, listen, man, we obviously are going to be talking extensively about the Toronto Blue Jays and not only just their, offseason so far, but just their players in general and your thoughts on it. But before we talk about them, let's talk a little bit about a winning team. I have been, both of us, stalking you on Twitter recently and realized that you are a semi-diehard Detroit Lions fan, which, listen, I'm not going to hold it against you. I'm a big Green Bay Packers guy myself, okay? And I will be the bigger man here and admit that you guys are pretty damn good this year. But just, you know what? I want to give you the floor and give your quick thoughts on the Detroit Lions, because I know, you know what? For me personally, it's always Blue Jays. But in the football season, just a couple minutes to talk about our football teams, if you want to say something.
Well, there have been a lot of lean years here for Detroit Lions fans. I was born and raised here in Windsor, Ontario. We are literally right across the border over the Ambassador Bridge or through the tunnel. My brothers used to take us to Tigers games as kids. I went to Tiger Stadium a million times. Not so much the Red Wings and Lions, but still Detroit fans and Pistons. So it's more of a geographical thing. I mean, you guys know wherever you grow up, and whether it's somewhere in the States, I mean, you're probably going to be a fan of the local team. Not always the case, but for me it was. And geographically, we're just right here across the border. I'm literally 15 minutes to Comerica Park right now, or to Little Caesars Arena or Ford Field. It's all right downtown. And, I will say, while I have this opportunity, since you asked me, downtown Detroit has come a long ways. It's really been a lot of fun over the holidays. It's fantastic. Great environment. I was not over there yesterday, but great environment in downtown Detroit on a Lions game day. So a lot of fun. Big game yesterday. I knew it was going to be tough with Allen coming to town, and sure enough, he put the boots to him pretty good. But should be a fun couple months here, and hopefully we're watching them play the last game of the season. But just geographical roots, born and raised, really Detroit sports fan in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and hey, I mean, that was an incredible game the other night. I mean, those are two juggernauts going head to head, and hopefully you guys get a good run in the playoffs. Transitioning a little bit to our Toronto Blue Jays, we didn't get a good run in the playoffs because we didn't make it to the playoffs. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on the entire season, because the last time we had you was back in spring training. A lot of things developed. You were talking about Vladdy's swing and how he made a certain adjustment this coming season, and it obviously showed great results. But unfortunately, his great adjustments weren't enough to make the team win 89, 90 games to go to the playoffs this year. Give us your overall kind of 2 cents on what do you think mainly went wrong? I know there's a cluster of things, but what kind of stood out to you the most?
Well, it's kind of one of those seasons. I mean, as a player, you have on your teams, whether it's in the minor leagues or major leagues, you have some seasons where a lot of things go right and everything's just firing in all cylinders. You have some of those seasons where it's just up, down, up, down. You just can't get hot, but then you win a few. and there are other seasons that are just miserable. And I think this season for the Blue Jays, it just got off on the wrong foot with the injuries to Romano, Swanson with the incident in spring training, and then his own injury. So you're missing your two back-end relievers right away. And it was a little bit of a fear of mine going into the season based on what happened last year. I mean, you had these guys in the bullpen that were so good, Romano, Swanson, Jimmy Garcia, Meza, these guys, but they had all worked pretty hard, as you know. They got work. They were all around career highs and innings and games. And you always feel like you're almost, I just got the red flag up a little bit. It doesn't mean it has to, but it's just like, I wonder if they can repeat these performances, right? And you need the rotation to do their thing. And then the rotation kind of showed that maybe they were a year older. Look at some of the setbacks Gosman had starting with his injury. Just probably, he admitted he probably came back too fast. And I mean, it's Kevin Gosman. You're counting on him to be your stud in the rotation. So when you don't get that, it's a big blow. It's not like your fifth starter going down and not getting a great season from him. Bassett took a step back, I thought, as well. And as good as Barrios was at times, he had some hiccups as well. So nobody really got rolling really good. So I think it was a combination. And then that's just on the pitching side. The hitting side, it was just miserable. And I don't want to say that, you get what's coming to you, but we heard it all spring about counting and believing in our guys and counting on our guys for rebounds. And they weren't happening. And I'm not so sure that was a great idea to double and triple down on defense. And I'm a big fan of defense. That's what I made my career doing, is playing defense.
Right.
If anybody likes defense, it's me. Trust me. It's what got me to the big leagues a few times. It's what gave me that taste. But when I look at this Blue Jays team and doubling and tripling down on defense, with the Kiner Falefa, a nice signing, nice player. And I know you can do that for a lot cheaper than a star type player that might just be marginally better than him. You come back with Kiermaier's defense. Again, great moves. Love defense. Defense is great, but they needed some thump. That's what was lacking. And they just didn't get it. And to count on a rebound from Springer this season, I thought was counting on an awful lot after his first down year. Father Time's undefeated. And, we don't know. We'll find out this year if that's it, that's what it is, or if it's just another hiccup for him. I mean, anytime players are great players for some time, it's in there. But when a guy starts aging, I mean, we've heard when analytics came into baseball, I mean, what did they tell us? It's age 30. Guess what? It's not getting better, whether you're a pitcher or a hitter. Now, of course, there are outliers. But I also think they really counted on a better tandem behind the plate in Jansen and Kirk. I don't think necessarily I would have expected greatness offensively from either one of them, just based on kind of what I've seen. And I mean, Alejandro's got that silver slugger season a couple years ago, and I think they're just thinking and hoping it's going to come back. But I don't know if I was so excited about that expectation. And then I go to like a Dalton Varsho, another guy, fantastic player in the field. We know that, can run into one, got some power. But I just think when they made that deal from Arizona, guys, they had to be thinking, projecting that he would be that offensive player that he was in Arizona.
I think we all thought
750 OPS with 25 to 30 bombs, and going to the outfield, being a tremendous defender as well. I mean, those are high expectations, maybe unrealistic expectations going into this 2024 season. And I mean, wouldn't you know it? Now, I will say this, Bo Bichette, if anybody knew he was going to have this kind of year, then you're a genius, because I certainly didn't see it coming, had no idea, blindsided by his year. I don't know if he can explain it, if anybody can explain it. I mean, to me, it looked to me like a player, and barring his injury, besides his injuries, it just looked like a human being that was beside himself. Whether he had personal issues going on in his life, we'll never know those things. But things happen throughout the course of a season, and maybe there was something along those lines. No idea. But for a guy that's done what he has done in this league in short time, 3-4 years, but you don't just forget how to hit like that. And so something's wrong there. Something's wrong. And if I had to lay a lot of money down, I think that's the guy that I would put on. And that's why I hate hearing these Bo Bichette trade rumors, because hey, I know if you trade him, you get something good back in return, whether it's pitching. But to me, he's part of your solution. If you want to compete at all this year, which I think ownership and the team is trying to do, Bo's part of the solution offensively, I think. And you need him and Vladdy to be your cornerstones at the top of that lineup. Again, Springer, I can't see him leading off. But then as the season ended, we said they need a big-time bat, if not two, right?
Yeah.
So now with Bo and Vladdy, it's starting to look like a thick part of the lineup there, and that makes sense. But so yeah, a lot went wrong. But I guess getting back to your question, I think maybe it just never got going.
Yeah, nothing really working at the same time, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's funny. Like, we're like one thing. We were pitching these questions. Adam and I was talking about it, and we're like, let's ask him if there's like one thing that went wrong. It's everything.
There's a million.
It's everything.
There's a million.
That's the thing. You can't really put it on one thing, and I fully agree with everything that you just brought up there. I guess piggybacking off of the conversation with Bo Bichette, obviously, yeah, there was the injuries and everything that went on there, and I certainly do not want to speculate on the mental or the attitude of Bo, because I do agree maybe there was something on there, but we don't know what's going on in his personal life. We're not sure. From just a swing mechanic standpoint, the guy up there in the box, the choices that he's making, did you notice anything different from him last year that was like inherently wrong with that swing that was contributing to some of the results that we saw? And I guess my most important question is it something that is actionable and can be fixed this offseason?
Well, I'll answer that right away, and I say yes, because that's why I said I think he can be one of your better offensive players this year, and that's why I'm keeping him, and I want him to be part of the solution of trying to compete at least. And we know it's only December. Hopefully they do add a lot more. Lots still can happen. But he's a funny one to watch, because even when Bo's going really good, there are some ugly moments, right? He's a free swinger. He takes his hack. He doesn't get cheated. And then all of a sudden he goes into his little two-strike approach where there's no leg kick, where he's just no stride. So he does a lot of things in the batter's box. And I think over the course of the year too, when you talk about a season, I mean, hitters are tinkering with things all the time, especially when they're struggling, right? So that you might try something for a week or two and then go back to something else. Then you might try something else. So I think if anything, you just saw a guy that never really got settled in the batter's box. Now, I mean, again, he can look that way when he's going good, but I just find like whether it was, okay, early on here, I'm going to take my shot and try to do some damage, instead of being that guy that, he's such a great contact guy, opposite field hit guy. We've seen it over the years. So instead of maybe being that and hitting for high average and being that tough out and maybe running into one once in a while, maybe I'm going to start trying to run into one right from the beginning of the count. So, but then maybe, okay, I didn't like the way that was going early on. I started to swing at some bad pitches. Let's go back to this. And I just think he was searching. It just seemed like he was searching. And again, a full season's a lot to go over for a hitter, because they're making they're tinkering a lot throughout the course of the season. But I think for me, it was a guy that was searching. And then again, whatever else was going on, he did not look like himself at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there was times when I thought the expanding of the zone was, a lot. But then there's other times I go, well, that's Bo Bichette. That's exactly what he does. And when he is able to expand the zone, he's able to make great contact and cover lots of parts of the plate. And I think that's his bread and butter, and that's always been his game. So a lot of people that think that it's a negative to have that kind of like coverage of the zone and be able to swing at things on the edges and make contact, I think that's Bo's game, and that's part of it, right?
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a little I guess analogy or metaphor right here. I was just thinking about, considering you're a Detroit Lions fan, sometimes I watch Bo Bichette. It kind of feels like Dan Campbell going on fourth down sometimes, where it's like when he's swinging at something outside the zone like a foot away and he hits it. You're like, holy shit, that was amazing. But then when he misses, you're like, oh my God, what are we doing here, right?
An onside kick with 10 minutes to go in the game.
Yeah, that
downtown.
Was wild.
Yeah, I think I've always reverted back when I talk about Bo hitting. It's like, leave Bo alone. I don't know that, in terms of, there have been hitting coaches in and out, and there are changes again here. Like, that's just becoming crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But to me, big league hitters just got to take it upon themselves. If you're Bo Bichette, if you're Vladdy, if you're Varsho, if you're Kirk, I don't care who you are, Springer. I mean, hitting coaches are there to help. They're there to guide you. They're there to give you information and all that. But ultimately, man, you got to figure it out. And to me, Bo's the kind of guy, he's going to figure it out. He is just too good. Like, you don't do what he did for that amount of time.
Exactly.
And be an accident and say, oh, the league's figured him out. No, he's not. To me, that's not the conversation here.
I agree. Now, I also want to jump off another guy we were talking about there, George Springer. Obviously, like you said, father time. He's starting to catch up with George, but he's still part of this team. Whether we like it or not, he's still right now, as we know, is going to get regular reps. Maybe John Schneider decides to sit him a little bit more this year, depending on, who else we have on this team. But right now, there is no other right fielder really competing for his job. So George is going to be on this team. And I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, Joe. And, what would you do with George Springer if you were to give him some advice? Obviously, George is going to do what he needs to do. But how does George get back to being a positive factor in this lineup every single day?
And also, do you start him off the year at the leadoff position?
Bonus question.
Yeah, I mean, here we go. There are a lot of questions, right? I said you can't just throw free agent money at guys and fix your team with all the issues they've got going on. And that's the case here too. But I think first and foremost, you got to make the move and move him down in the order. Like, you just have to. It took too long last year. Mm-hmm. And to continue beating the same drum and say, he's our guy, we need them to be good. He's our guy, we need them to be good. Well, yeah, I'll be the first one to admit your best players need to be your best players. I get it. But I think we're getting to the point now where you have to look at what's happened over the last 2 seasons and say he's not one of our best offensive players right now. So make the adjustment. Now, you make the adjustment by dropping him in the order, still plays a fine outfield, still runs well, still does a lot of things pretty well. Maybe he, with the savviness of his veteran time he's had in this league, can figure out a way. I love that term, figure it out, because if anyone can, he can, just to be some sort of offensive contributor. Maybe it's hitting 7th, but whatever the case may be, do it down there. Mm-hmm. I don't know who the next leadoff hitter is, though, guys. Like, they don't really have, and we don't even talk prototypical leadoff hitters in the game much anymore. I mean, you just move Bo up there with Vladdy, and then if you get a free agent hitter, you put him third. Whatever the case may be, you see things thin out when you move, because we were so accustomed to saying, hey, Springer, Bo, Vladdy up there. Teo, when he was here, it was easy. But now it's gotten very difficult because, I don't want to say that wells run dry, but I mean, you can't have Alejandro Kirk hitting 4th, can you? I mean, come on. So those are the things. Like, Kirk should be lower and he's fine. Nice job behind the plate, that kind of stuff. And then there's another conversation. Is there going to be a tandem for him? Are you going to expect Alejandro to catch 110 games this year? Like, so so in answer to your question, I mean, if probably the guy's not here, I mean, they better go out and get at least one bat to play left field, let's say. And then, is it one of the remaining guys? Is it Loper, Fido, Schneider, Barges, or one of these other bodies that gives George a day off once in a while? Because, Schneider did talk about that last year in spring training about I remember him saying one day it was almost his fault, he said the year before, not giving him enough rest.
Yeah, so I remember that.
I thought we might see a little more, and I have to look back at the number of games he played. I mean, we know they have their rest days and all, but it didn't seem like they took a big step back for him. So maybe this year will be that year, but as you just alluded to, you need somebody to step in. And I mean, I know they made lots of deals at the deadline, and it was the right thing to do. I get it. It's that reboot, but I don't know how many of the players that, we haven't seen Jake Bloss pitch yet, but I don't know how many of these guys are going to be major contributors. Joey Luperfido had some serious struggles, and Will Wagner.
A lot of swing and miss. And who knows what Wagner will be like it. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't doubt some of these guys might still get dealt, and we're going to find out what other teams value in these players, because the Blue Jays will probably use some of them to make some deals here.
Maybe this is a silly question, because I think really the answer is actually all of the above. But considering we're talking about George Springer and potentially moving him down, and you were bringing up the fact that who fills in for him at the top of the lineup, who is that guy? Put on your GM hat right now. If you had to make the choices here, what would you prioritize? Having somebody to set the table at the top of this lineup, or somebody to go and protect Vladimir Guerrero Jr., batting 4th behind him? Because I think Blue Jays fans can all agree, like, we need both right now. And as of today, I don't know who the guy is in either one of those spots.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tough scenario, because you don't have that true number one. You don't have like a bopper. Like, what I would do, I would just probably move the guys up. I want my best hitters coming up. And the reason I say that over and over, it's not to me about who's leading off the game and who's coming up, and you got to get guys on base for your 2 and 3 and 4 hitters. I feel like it's more when that lineup turns over, I'm thinking more about the 7th and 8th inning of a 1-run ball game or down 1. I need my boys coming up. I need my guys. And so to me, I don't plug in, remember, like, a lot of people would talk about they should lead off Kevin Biggio. They should do just on base guys. And like, I totally get the argument. It's not a bad argument at all, but I don't want that bat. I want a guy that can do some damage. I want like a Bichette. If that's, I mean, as we sit right here today, it better not be the way the lineup looks when we go to spring training. But if you're sitting here right there today, or let's say during the season, if you're going to move George down, to me, I would just move them up. Now, again, this is assuming Bo is Bo. Like if you got Bo and Vladdy being Bo and Vladdy, I'd just go 1-2 then. Put your boppers in later after that, whoever you might acquire or whatever. But, I don't think Gimenez has let off a whole lot. I don't think that's necessarily an option. He's had a couple down offensive years. So for me, big trade, new team, coming over, don't want to have the weight of the world on him. Hit him lower. Maybe he locks it in and turns back into the hitter that he once was. And if he does, that's going to be a big bonus because right now you're not necessarily counting on that offense. So quietly, he could be that bounce back right there too. That would be a nice contribution. But again, I don't think that's helping your leadoff spot. Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, I want to jump right off that. Andres Gimenez, new Blue Jay, coming over. Big trade. Honestly, I can say this with honesty. I did not see that trade coming. I don't think, after the years, like you alluded to, the years of going, doubling, tripling down on defense.
Sorry, Adam, you didn't expect to trade for a defensive first player right now?
I didn't think we'd do it for like a fourth or fifth time.
You didn't think the Blue Jays would do that?
Not at all. But it's been done. He's a Toronto Blue Jay. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit, Joe. We could get into details about Andres Gimenez. First of all, the first thoughts about the move when it first was announced, and do you think this is inevitably, we don't know, but inevitably going to help contribute to more wins for the Toronto Blue Jays? Well, I got a little backstory first, which is a little bit funny for me. So toward the end of the season, last weekend of the season, Matt Haig, of course, is attached at the hip with Spencer Horwitz. You guys are pretty aware of that, right? They work like hand in hand. A lot of great things said about Matt Haig. That's why when he left, there was another one. I just put my hands up. I'm like, I thought he was going to be the new hitting coach. All of a sudden, he's leaving the team. Like, what a 180 that was. I went, whoa. Anyway, great guy. Had lots of great hitting conversations with him. But the two of them were kind of near each other by the dugout after BP one day. And I said to Spencer, I said, well, you might be one of the guys to go. We're talking all these possible trades in the winter. I said, with the year you just had and the value you provided, I said, you might be one of the guys to go. And he chuckled. And as he said it, he pointed over and he said, well, if I go anywhere, he's coming with me. And he pointed right to Haig, who was coming up into the conversation. Well, Haig's gone. He goes to the Pirates. Horwitz gets traded to Cleveland. And where's he get spun? To Pittsburgh. I mean, how funny is that story?
Just a coincidence,
that's
is
insane.
That a match made in heaven?
That's insane.
Hey, I don't work in a front office. I'm sure you can try to accommodate people to some degree. Maybe things were talked about how these two guys are, maybe when the Cleveland-Toronto trade was being worked out, Cleveland understood the relationship he had with Haig. They were already thinking of spinning him. I don't know how those conversations go, but it was pretty funny. Gimenez, the team's better. The team's better because for me, they didn't really have a second baseman. I mean, Spencer Horwitz was – I think they kind of like knocked him off that island pretty fast, even though I know he didn't play a great second base. But my gosh, considering their other options, I don't know that, it sounded like they were really high on Will Wagner and that he was going to be the second baseman next year. But I mean, again, here's a team, I would like to use the term trying to win the AL East instead of saying trying to compete, because to me, if you're just trying to compete, that means you're just trying to get that third wild card, and that's dangerous stuff if anything goes wrong. So to me, you got to kind of go for a little bit. And to have a kid like Will Wagner as your second baseman, it's like, did some nice things, but I didn't necessarily see that being the thing. So now with Gimenez, if Bo stays and plays shortstop, Gimenez is at second base, and you're a better team. You're, again, great defensively. And I think I feel more than anything about the hope, and the hope's not a great strategy, but here's a guy that's done it. His first full season in the big leagues, he was an all-star, great offensive season. I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him. Maybe did he, with his, 17 home runs, did he get a little pull happy these last 2 years? Did he try to do too much? Did he try to repeat those performances? Those things can happen with young players. So I don't know much about him yet. I haven't even looked at his swing a ton. So I'll do that in spring training. I like to set my eyes on him and watch his swing and talk to him a little bit about that, because that can happen. That can happen. But it's a little bit of that. Now, I've heard the jokes about Varsho being he was the infield version of Varsho, but you look back at what Varsho did in Arizona, that was kind of his first full season in the big leagues when he really broke out offensively and had that year. Hasn't really done it since. And so Gimenez did the same thing in Cleveland's first full year in the big leagues. So remember what happens too, guys, when you're that young coming in the big leagues, the league kind of gets the book on you. They've seen you now. So whether they, started attacking him with more fastballs, in Varsho's case, what did they do to Gimenez? I don't know. I'll do some research and look some things, but it could just be a case too of a hitter. Hey, I was an all-star, 17 bombs. I'm going to hit 20 plus this year and be even better. And all of a sudden you start, rolling stuff over. It could be things like that. So I think the team's better for sure, but it might be even better than I'm counting on, because I'm kind of counting on maybe some offense from this guy, because I've heard nothing but great things.
Yeah.
And did it one year doesn't mean you can do it again, but he's young. It's there. Again, it's not one of those cases where, I mean, what's concerning is the back-to-back years of down offense after the year.
Yeah.
This year is, to me, it's a huge year for him, because we're going to find out, is it going to be his third down offensive year offensively? And maybe that's who he is. Or is he going to rebound and be that guy? Is he, been around the league's adjusted? Can he adjust? I think this is the year you're going to find out.
Yeah. I mean, when I looked at Andres Gimenez, the thing that stuck out to me the most in that 2022 year, when he almost hit 300, there was a lot of all those, I don't know how much of a metrics guy you are in terms of baseball savant. There was a lot of those metrics that were saying, well, he got maybe a little bit more lucky and whatever. And then the following years, it kind of matched what he was expected to do with all those hard hit rates and barrel rates and everything like that. So I'm interested to see. I'm curious. Maybe we'll touch base again, and I want to see what you think as well about Andres Gimenez once you do a little more research and you get a look at him in spring training. Because I mean, you're right. Like this guy is going to help us win. I do agree. I think it would be great if you can get that bat, because obviously you lose a little bit of Spencer Horwitz. Now we don't know if he overperformed or underperformed, or this is what Spencer Horwitz was, but he was sneakily a really good player for the Blue Jays last year in the short sample size he had, and the Blue Jays, got to find a way to replace that just a little bit.
Well, and I think in getting Gimenez too, and you look at, I was shocked, because I was thinking, wait a minute, isn't that Cleveland second baseman? Like, he's right. Shortstop, second base. But I mean, then you look at the contract, and you can see what they did the first few years of the contract: lower, and then boom, boom, boom. It's going to go up. Well, one thing we know the Blue Jays can do is they can spend money, and people can get on ownership all they want. But this is not a cheap organization. It's just a matter of how you spend your money, obviously, and how far you want to go on certain guys. And you can argue their valuations and where they're only going to go so far on this player or so far on that player. But the bottom line is, I think Cleveland had to get rid of that salary. Their TV contract got taken. Went bankrupt with Bally's. Things happen behind the scenes there that make these things happen. And I think Cleveland did the right thing when they signed him, is they used up those first few years where they weren't paying him as much. But that's one thing the Blue Jays can do. They can take on money, and that's what they did.
Well, speaking about spending money, that's something that they haven't done a ton of yet this offseason, and we are hopeful, I think you are as well, with the way that you're speaking about the lineup, that they are going to go out and they are going to continue to add, and hopefully add some guys that can hit for power, that can hit for contact, that can really, score some runs for this team. Is there anybody right now, I guess, on the free agency market that has kind of caught your eye that you think might be a good fit for the Toronto Blue Jays moving forward?
Well, first and foremost, the free agency thing is so different than trade, and that's why they're able to get Gimenez, because he doesn't have to choose to go there. Free agents, it's a two-way street, right? I mean, whoever you're talking about throwing a bunch of money at as a free agent. Now, have they been able to land free agents? Absolutely. I mean, when they got Ryu and then Springer and Gosman and the list, that's when we're like, hey, this team's for real now. Like, they're really going into a different place. And they've had some great signings. I would say all of those signings, the ones like even Ryu, Gosman, Bassett even, extending Barrios, all of them were pretty, I don't know if I can use the word safe signings, but those are pretty good signings, right? Really good players. Did they overpay a little bit? Maybe, but just nice signings, and especially when you're building a rotation. Now, I don't think they're going to go to that next place. It just doesn't seem like that's who they are in terms of their, quote, valuations and how they go about things. They haven't shown to do that. Probably smart, but on the other side of it, the critics might say, you've got to come out of your shell sometimes and go crazy for somebody if you want them. Otherwise, you're not getting them.
Yeah.
Today's industry, and we've seen it already. Look what Willie Adames got. Look at Max Fried got. Where the money is going right now. And is that crazy money in crazy years? Yes. You really want to get those players, you're going to have to do crazy things. So that's why the trade market is beneficial to the Blue Jays, because it's not a two-way street. You can make that deal. But what do you need in a trade? You need ammo yourself. You need assets. And that's one place this organization, the player development and the farm system, is not in a great place to make those moves. And that's why I said those guys, they tried to deepen the farm system at the deadline by making those moves and getting these players. Well, now we're going to find out what other teams value these players as, because if they can spin 2 or 3 guys and maybe even a closer big league guy for a bat or for somebody else, like that's how you get a Gimenez, right? But now free agency is a tough one. I was fooling around toward the end of the season. I think I said on a few shows, like, I have no problem. I know it sounds crazy. Again, I'm probably in the minority, but I have no problem if it's one of the first basemen that were available, moving Vladdy to third. Like, I don't care about Vladdy at third. I don't care if he's a -5 defensive run save. Going back to your metrics and analytics, again, I love defense. Don't get me wrong. I know it helps win baseball games, but this team needs to hit. And you can't just keep playing on the margins and add an okay bat right now. It's not going to work. You need more than that, especially if you're going to count on the same guys again, bouncing back and being better. Varsho, Kirk, Springer, the list goes on. I mean, let's just assume Bo and Vladdy are going to be really good, because I think they are. You need it 1, if not 2 bats to make this a formidable offense to compete. I mean, watch. I mean, how many times you got to watch the playoffs in October, guys? I joke with friends and family sitting at home here and say it's all about home runs in the postseason. I mean, it's hard to string things together. Now, I understand not striking out, getting on base, putting the ball in play. That stuff's all good, but the Blue Jays did a lot of those things really well. Yeah, they played defense better than anybody in the world this year, and look where they were.
And exactly. How did it work?
You got to hit, and you got to hit for power. I think there is a time through the course of the season, I forget which hitting coach I was talking to, one of the guys, but I was having this conversation. It was about George, and like, George, great contact, not striking out, and it's like I kind of said, like, swinging and missing isn't bad once in a while. Like, maybe getting up there and trying to do damage and missing the ball is okay. Like, being such a great contact hitter isn't always the greatest thing, because you're putting them in play weekly. That's no good. Rolling stuff over to third. So, in answer again to your question, I don't mind, like, whether it's a Christian Walker. I know he's a little bit older, and I don't think Pete Alonso. Those, to me, again, the two-way street. I don't even know what's realistic. But Teoscar and Santander, I'll take either one of them, absolutely. Now, the question I have about Teoscar, I mean, I'm not saying the Blue Jays kind of jettisoned him, but they traded him and they got stuff in return. I get it, but I wonder how he's feeling about them trading him at the time. And obviously for financial reasons, I know there are a lot of reasons behind it, but I think you're going to have to go definitely an extra year and an extra 20-25 million if you want Teoscar to come back here.
Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now, everyone, back to the content.
Yeah,
well, I actually wanted to pick your brain because you brought this up. Yes, they signed Gosman. Yes, they signed Bassett and Barrios and George and Ryu. Now, the team at the time when they made all the signings were kind of on the upswing, and they were looking really attractive, and they had lots of money. Do you think this offseason it's a little bit different and a little bit harder to convince someone to come north of the border to play for the Toronto Blue Jays when we're not looking so upswingy?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole Soto thing was almost a joke. I just stopped reading stuff because, and again, he could have signed. I get it. But I was like thinking slim and none, like zeros. There's no way this guy. How would you go to a team that just came last place in the AL East, and he knows the division well, being a Yankee, and just the way the uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty up top, right? There's the president and general manager with a year and 2 left on their deals. That may change. We'll see. You've got 2 of your best players in Bo and Vladdy that are going to be free agents after this season. And I mean, if you want to talk about Vladdy, that's another one. But I don't see him signing. There's no way Vladdy's signing right now. I wouldn't if I was him. Not after the year I just put up. And I saw the money. Soto, God, are you kidding me? I'm waiting until next year at this time where 4 or 5 teams are going to be offering me things that probably start with a 4, right? And so, I mean, to answer your question again, now, so hard right now. Corbin Burns, really? I mean, I think you're going to have to go crazy extra year or 2 in money to bring a guy like that. Like those high-end mega stars, and he's maybe not mega, he's pretty good. Pretty tough to get those guys with the situation in place. And let's not blame one side here. That's part front office. It's part players.
For sure.
Vladdy kind of made this mess for the Blue Jays too. After that MVP caliber season, if he kept doing that, he might be signed for 15 years already, like a few years ago. But I don't like when people blame the Blue Jays for not having him locked up yet.
No, it's true.
I'll raise my hand and say, last few years, we've had these discussions among ourselves in the studio and all. There's no way I would have committed 10 and 300
Yes.
to Vladdy with the inconsistencies that he was showing. And, he put on the weight. We talked about that sometimes in his swing and all these things. It's like, that's not somebody I want to commit 10 plus years to. So it's unfortunate is what it is. Now, I would say the biggest thing for me front office wise, what they need to do, they need to do better at addressing the weaknesses or the areas that they need to be better at to compete. But now, all of a sudden after 2024, I mean, look at this mess. Like there are a lot of holes to fill, and I don't know that they have the minor league farm system, people to trade to get what you need, or the free agent dollars to fire at guys that want to come to this situation. It's just a lousy situation right now.
Well, I love everything that you just said there about Guerrero. And, I've been guilty before for certainly screaming at the top of my lungs, getting on the front office, getting on the management for not already having this guy locked up. But I was actually literally bringing it up today, this morning on our show, the fact that there was this one report that came out saying, we don't know if it's true or not, but the Jays offered Guerrero $340 million and he declined it. And everyone now is saying, oh, well, that's lowballing him like crazy. But if that would have been revealed a year ago, then everyone would have been screaming at the top of their lungs, what the hell are you doing? That's way too much money for this guy right now, after the seasons that he's done. So you're 100% right that yes, it is the front office, but yes, it is also Vladimir Guerrero Jr., just the situation as a whole. I guess now, though, Blue Jays fans, us too, are wondering, with 1 year left on his contract, with it being so difficult to convince all of these big-time, big-ticket free agents to come here, with the uncertainty, surrounding, well, is Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, are they going to be back in a couple years? All that stuff. How do you navigate this Vladimir Guerrero Jr. situation? Just, to better the team as a whole, I guess, how do you handle it?
Well, the situation, there's only one thing to do if you're in charge right now, and that's to do what they're doing, and that's keeping Vladdy, it's keeping Bo, it's trying to add, it's trying to be better on the margins, it's picking up a reliever, it's trying to find ways to just get as good as you can and hope a lot of things go your way. For example, like some of those bounce backs offensively, the guys we've talked about. Likely, tough to ask that from 2 and 3 and 4 guys, but you need all these things to go right. But that's the only thing they can do. How can you do anything else? Objectively, looking down from above at this situation after the 2024 season, I mean, the right thing to probably do business-wise was to blow it up, like include Vladdy at the deadline and just blow it up and start all over. I'm talking everybody, like Godwin and Barrios, like everything. I mean, that's probably right thing to do. It's probably like that's the situation they're in. But now, and thankfully, again, you have ownership and money that's going to support this, keeping Vladdy, keeping Bo, and doing what you can. We know baseball's a crazy game, and if you can somehow, I don't really like playing for a third wild card, but because of it, it keeps a lot of those teams that are on the outside edges, just keeps teasing them a little bit, like, hey, well, yeah, what if the Yankees have some injuries? What if the Orioles take a step back? So there is always that chance. Now, again, there are a lot of things to do. And you mentioned the pitchers earlier. I mean, the rotation's a tough one. These guys are a year older after taking a step back already. If we were talking about a few years ago when these guys, this rotation was solid and healthy, I mean, that year, 2 years ago, when you quite frankly pissed away 4 starting pitchers that made 30 starts each with ERAs under 4. Like, you can't mess that up.
And
they messed it up. Unbelievable. That was to me, that was the sweet spot. That was the year. And then building from that, it should have been the next year and the year after that too, right? So let's just say things have not gone right.
No, they haven't. But hopefully, the Blue Jays can make a couple more moves, maybe 1 or 2 before the holiday season. They better, right? Because if they don't, like we've been talking about, everybody knows this, it's going to be even harder for them to get back to even contention or a third wild card or compete for the AL East. It's a lot, especially with the way the Yankees are adding on right now, even after losing Soto, and the Red Sox trading for Crochet. It's only getting tougher, and it's only going to be harder for the Jays to make it in the AL East.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess to cap all of this off, you had brought it up earlier. We've been screaming at the top of our lungs about it. There is certainly something to be said for having your player evaluations and having a number that is spat out and, sticking to that and not wanting to overpay. But with 1 year left of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., if there is anybody that, if he does hit free agency, we might want to go above and beyond for, I would argue that it is that guy. But I think we're going to leave it at that, Joe. Any final thoughts before we say our goodbyes?
Well, final thought is it's December the 16th, and that's the great news. I never like to get too excited. Not a lot happens in November. Things start happening in December, but your team hasn't really done much, so you're starting to get frustrated as a fan base. Every year I think I do the same thing. Let's just slow it down. And when we're reporting to spring training in mid-February, that's a different conversation. And then even throughout the course of spring, things can happen. But yeah, I think we're all in the same boat. If you're a Blue Jays fan, you are waiting and waiting anxiously. But I certainly hope there is a bat, if not two, added to this lineup before we get to spring training.
Agreed. Again, thank you, Joe, for coming on to the podcast. I'm sure everybody in the comments are going to appreciate your presence. They love your insight, Joe. Again, thank you from the Blue Jays Today boys to you.
My pleasure, guys. Have a great day. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, care, Joe. That was Joe Siddall. You can find him on your Blue Jays broadcast, folks. When they come back, that guy is going to be back. Obviously, incredible analysis as per usual. Please let us know your thoughts in the comments down below about all of this. Hit that like, smash the subscribe button. $3 will become a Patreon member. Shout out and thank you to all of our current Patreon members and our YouTube members. You guys are so appreciated. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And as always, go Jays, go!